And here we will have a button. So this is a button. Actually, so we need to configure the buttons, and here we need links. That links should navigate to a specific route. Then generally how we do is, instead of a button, we can keep a link here now. So link, this link should be for home. Okay. Another link should be for electronics. Another link is for footwear. So another link for fashion. You can create a navigation bar or anything. How it should navigate? Actually, it should navigate so to the path. That means it should work. Generally, link have href, but it should work for router link, router path. Then we have to use as a router link. And we need to configure what is the path home. That means you have to define the path name. That means it will work for this link, will work for this path. So we need to configure that here. That means router link is, this is for electronics, and this router link, so router link, this is for footwear, and this is router link, and this is for fashion. Okay, that's fine. Where the result of these links should be rendered, we need to define the location where the results need to be rendered. Then what we have to do is, so this is, this is the header. Toolbar is the header. And so this is section. We can have clean division here. So this part I will keep in header. In header, we will keep this. That is better. Okay. And here we have a section. And in the section, I will keep the style as margin top as some 50 pixel, and height of the section will be some 400 pixel. Okay. And here we have a footer. Generally footer will have copyright and all, like, so class is equal to, so BG danger, and text white, and text center. And here I just kept some ampersand copy. So just some copyright. Right. And here in the section, we want to render the output. Here we have to keep the router outlet. We need to define the router outlet. That means now this is what actually the router links and router outlet. Router outlet decides where to render your information. And the shopping here, so we need to get that here. By default, it gets with the shopping home. That means important is we need to configure. If anything is not requested, so you can see by default, actually here it is coming with the shopping home. We are not defining anything here. It is coming with the shopping home. By default, it is coming with the shopping home. So because here actually the URL we requested here, that is the app component HTML. This is in the configuration. So that means we are starting with that app component. In the index also we have app root, because that is the selector for it. And we haven't mentioned anything here. So we haven't configured anything here. And in shopping home, we have just this shopping home. And we don't need a router outlet here now, because the router outlet we are already configuring. In the index page. That means in our app component page. So that means here we don't need that routing component anymore now. Okay. So what should happen here? I need to get all the links and handle those links for navigation. In the router, currently you mentioned the options like home, electronics, footwear, and all. But observe carefully here. Suppose I'm requesting here some electronics. So that electronics, these products should come. Why? Because still we haven't finished this routing. Why? Configuration is not finished. Why configuration is not finished? Because you just mentioned the route home, route electronics, route footwear, and fashion. Actually, whenever application starts, user will not request anything. By default, a specific component should come. By default, a specific component should come. So that means here, home means it is getting this shopping home component. Okay, that's fine. By default, which component to render? So by default, which component to access, that you have to mention. We need to configure. Actually, for that, we need some wildcard options to define in the route. Wildcard options to define in the route. So generally, we write wildcard options also in the route. So how do we define is? So we configure a path and it says empty. That means if user is not requesting anything. If user is not requesting anything, then what should happen? That means if it is empty, by default, if it is empty, then what should happen? So you have to configure some component. Actually, not the component. What should happen is it should redirect to home, and it should use path match as full. That means it has to match the path full. That means we have to define as full. This is nothing but already the home path is defined. In the home path, lot of details may be defined. Now, if user is not requesting anything, you have to mention all details again. Instead of that, you can simply say redirect to this path. And path match full indicates that use all the attributes as defined in that path, so that you don't need to rewrite them again and again here, right? That is what actually we have to define. But this is the wildcard route we configured. And here the components are not yet ready. Why? Because by default it is coming with the shopping home, and you defined one point here, which component to start with. Okay. Another important option in the wildcard routes, that means still it is not finished. We have to define wildcard routes. Wildcard routes. Two important options are there. If you define path is equal to empty, a path is empty. This indicates that if path is empty, this indicates that so you are not requesting anything. That means so not requesting anything. Then by default, which one to come? We can configure the path by using double asterisk. This indicates that so requested path not found. That means you requested something and it is not available. Then what to do? You have to configure this. So that means you requested something, but it is not available. Then how do we configure? How do we do that? So we need to define this, right? So these are the options we need to configure. That means we need to add one more component, not found. For not found, which one to access? These all together combination will allow you to configure the routes and handle the routes, configuring and handling the routes. So initially, I just showed you how do we configure the routes, how do we define the routes. So, but we need to completely start up with it and create one application, handle all the navigation. So that entire example we will see in tomorrow's session. This is not example, just only configurations I told you. Now I will create a separate project because in our project I have a lot of components.